The police arrived in a whirlwind of flashing lights and radio chatter, but Karen stood her ground beside the wounded Tesla like a general surveying a conquered battlefield. Officer Martinez approached her slowly, his hand resting on his radio, while his partner began photographing the scene and interviewing witnesses. "Ma'am, I need you to step away from the vehicle," Martinez said calmly. "We've received reports of property damage and public disturbance." Karen straightened her shoulders and smoothed her yoga top with false composure. "Officer, I am Karen Whitmore, Vice President of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. What you're witnessing is a lawful response to parking violations and community deterioration." "A lawful response?" Martinez glanced at the boulder protruding from the Tesla's interior. "Ma'am, did you throw that rock through this windshield?" "I didn't throw it," Karen replied with icy precision. "I relocated a piece of community landscaping to illustrate a point about respect and order." The officer's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. "You relocated a 100-kilogram boulder through someone's windshield to illustrate a point." "The weight is irrelevant," Karen snapped, but her voice wavered slightly. Now that the adrenaline was fading, the magnitude of what she'd done was beginning to sink in. Her hands started to shake again, not from rage this time, but from something dangerously close to fear. Marcus Chen's Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot with a screech of tires. He emerged looking disheveled, his tie askew, his dark hair mussed from running his hands through it during the frantic drive from his office. His eyes went wide as he took in the destruction. "What the hell, Karen?" He stared at his demolished car, then at her. "Are you completely out of your mind?" "Your parking choices have consequences, Marcus," Karen said, but her usual commanding tone faltered. Seeing the genuine shock and hurt in his eyes made something twist uncomfortably in her chest. You can't just ignore the established order of things." "The established order?" Marcus's voice cracked with disbelief. "Karen, it's a parking space. And technically, it's not even a reserved spot. It's my spot." The words erupted from her with desperate fury. "I've parked there every day for 3 years. I know every crack in that asphalt, every stain, every..." She stopped abruptly, realizing how unhinged she sounded. Officer Martinez stepped between them. "Sir, is this your vehicle?" "Yes, and I want to press charges," Marcus said immediately, but then he paused, studying Karen's face. Something in her expression, a flicker of genuine distress beneath the anger, made him hesitate. "Actually, can I have a moment to think about this?" Karen's head snapped up, surprise replacing defiance. In 3 years of HOA battles, Marcus had never shown her anything but professional courtesy tinged with exasperation. She'd expected immediate legal retaliation, not consideration. "Marcus," she said quietly. But she couldn't find words. What could she possibly say? That watching him change things in the community felt like watching her entire identity crumble. That the parking spot was the last thing she could control when everything else seemed to be slipping away. "Ma'am?" Officer Martinez interrupted gently. "Regardless of the property owner's decision about charges, I need to write this up as an incident, and I strongly recommend you both seek mediation through your HOA bylaws before this escalates further." Karen nodded numbly, but her mind was racing. The crowd was still watching, phones out, undoubtedly recording everything. By tomorrow, the entire incident would be on the neighborhood Facebook group, probably with her wild-eyed face frozen in a dozen different screenshots. Her reputation, her authority, everything she'd built in this community, it was all crashing down as surely as that boulder had crashed through Marcus's windshield. "I need to go home," she whispered, but as she turned toward her Lexus, she caught sight of her reflection in its tinted windows. The woman staring back at her looked like a stranger, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed, dirt smudged across her cheek like war paint. Who had she become? The 100-kilogram decorative boulder crashed through the windshield of the pristine white Tesla Model S, with a sound like thunder splitting the earth. Karen Whitmore stood 30 feet away, her manicured hands still trembling from the effort, her designer yoga pants splattered with dirt, and her face flushed crimson with righteous fury. The Boulder now sat embedded in the driver's seat like a granite monument to her rage. That's way to you GTF4 PRKIM in my spot, she screamed at the gathering crowd of horrified neighbors, her voice echoing off the community pool's decorative stonework. The Tesla belonged to Marcus Chen, the newly elected HOA president who had dared to challenge her iron-fisted rule over Willowbrook Estates. The chaos had begun 20 minutes earlier when Karen arrived for her daily 2 p.m. pool inspection, a self-appointed duty she performed religiously for 3 years as HOA vice president. Her burgundy Lexus SUV, complete with vanity plates reading HOA REIN, HOA Queen, she'll explain to anyone who'd listen, had been forced to park 3 spaces away from her usual spot, directly beside the pool entrance. Marcus's Tesla sat in what Karen considered sacred ground, the spot she'd mentally claimed since moving to Willowbrook. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," called out Janet Rodriguez, clutching her terrified poodle to her chest. "This is completely insane." Karen whirled around, her perfectly styled blonde bob whipping dramatically. "Insane, insane. Do you know what's insane, Janet? It's watching this community fall apart under incompetent leadership." She gestured wildly at the Tesla, where safety glass continued to tinkle onto the asphalt. "That man thinks he can waltz in here with his electric car virtue signaling and his progressive HOA policies and destroy everything I've built." The small crowd exchanged nervous glances. Karen had always been intense about HOA rules. She'd once spent 4 hours measuring grass heights with a ruler, but this was unprecedented violence. "Karen," said Bill Thompson, the elderly treasurer, stepping forward cautiously, "maybe we should call someone. You're clearly upset." "Upset?" Karen's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Bill, I'm not upset. I'm awakened. Do you people realize what Marcus is planning? He wants to allow backyard chicken coops. Chicken COPS. In a prestigious community like ours." She kicked at a piece of the broken windshield. "Next thing you know, he'll be painting houses rainbow colors and installing hot tub time machines." The crowd murmured uncertainly. Some of Marcus's proposals had actually seemed reasonable during the contentious HOA meeting last month, like allowing small vegetable gardens and relaxing the strict exterior paint color restrictions. But Karen had fought each one with the ferocity of someone defending the last outpost of civilization. "Where is he anyway?" Karen demanded, scanning the growing crowd. "Too cowardly to face the consequences of his parking choices." "He's at work, Karen," Janet said quietly. "Like most normal people at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday." Karen's eyes narrowed dangerously. Something in her expression shifted, and for a moment, even she seemed surprised by what she'd done. But then her jaw set with renewed determination. "Well, he'll get the message when he sees this. Actions have consequences. Rules matter. Order matters." As if summoned by her words, the distant sound of sirens began to wail. "And if I say yes," she said slowly, "what happens to my reputation as the boulder-throwing HOA crazy person?" Marcus grinned. "Well, that's the interesting part. I've been thinking about that video that's going viral. You know what people are saying in the comments? Half of them are terrified of you. But the other half are saying things like, 'I wish my HOA president cared that much about the community, and at least she gets things done.'" Karen blinked. "Really? Really? Karen, you've accidentally become famous as the most dedicated HOA officer in internet history. The question is, what are you going to do with that reputation?" As if on cue, Karen's phone buzzed with a new notification. She glanced at it and froze. "Marcus, I just got a friend request on Facebook." "Okay?" From someone in Texas. "They want to know if I'd be willing to consult on their HOA problems." They looked at each other in stunned silence before Marcus started laughing. "Are you kidding me? You're about to become a HOA consultant because you threw a boulder through my car." Karen stared at her phone as more notifications popped up. Messages from strangers asking for advice, invitations to HOA management groups, even what appeared to be a job inquiry from a property management company. "What the hell have I done?" she whispered. But as she scrolled through the messages, something unexpected happened. For the first time in months, instead of feeling like her world was ending, Karen felt like it might just be beginning. The doorbell rang again. Karen sat in her pristine living room at 6 p.m., nursing her third glass of wine and staring at her phone as the notifications poured in. The Willowbrook Estates Facebook group was on fire with grainy cell phone videos of her boulder throwing performance, and the comments ranged from shocked to amused to genuinely concerned for her mental health. Karen has lost it, read one post with crying laughing emojis. Another simply said, "Well, that escalates quickly." But it was Susan Patterson's comment that hit hardest. "I've always thought Karen was intense, but this is actually scary. Maybe someone should check on her." The doorbell rang, and Karen considered ignoring it. She'd been avoiding human contact since the police incident, unable to face the mixture of judgment and pity she'd seen in her neighbor's eyes. But the bell rang again, followed by a familiar voice. "Karen, it's Marcus. I know you're in there." She found him on her doorstep, holding 2 cups of coffee from the local cafe, looking surprisingly calm for someone whose car had been recently boulder crushed. He changed out of his work clothes into jeans and a faded college shirt, which somehow made him seem more approachable and less like the enemy she'd built him up to be in her mind. "I brought coffee," he said simply. "Can we talk?" Against her better judgment, she let him in. They sat on her cream-colored couch in awkward silence for a moment before Marcus spoke. "I'm not pressing charges," he said quietly. Karen's head jerked up. "What?" "My insurance will cover the car. And honestly, after seeing you today, I think you're going through something that has nothing to do with parking spaces or HOA politics." Karen's throat tightened. "You think I'm crazy." "I think you're scared," Marcus said with unexpected gentleness. "And I think maybe we've all been so focused on our disagreements that we never stop to ask why this community means so much to you that you'd literally move mountains to protect it." The kindness in his voice nearly broke her. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Before Willowbrook, I was nobody. Divorced, unemployed, living in a studio apartment above a dry cleaner. This place, being vice president, having people listen to me and respect my opinions, it saved me. And when you started changing things, it felt like you were taking away the only identity I've ever had that mattered." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Karen, you do realize that being HOA vice president isn't who you are, right? It's just a job, and not even a paid one." "It's all I have," she admitted, the words barely audible. "That's not true." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "You organized the most successful community fundraiser in Willowbrook's history. You single-handedly got our property values increased by maintaining standards most people couldn't achieve. You've helped dozens of neighbors navigate city permits and HOA procedures. You're not just a vice president, you're a leader. But leadership isn't about controlling everything. It's about helping people." Karen stared at him, processing this unexpected perspective on herself. "So what happens now?" Marcus smiled wryly. "Well, first, you're probably going to get a reputation as the woman who throws boulders at cars. That's going to follow you around for a while." Despite everything, Karen felt a small smile tug at her lips. "Great, just great." But Marcus continued, "I was thinking maybe we could channel that passion of yours into something more constructive. The truth is, I need someone who knows this community inside and out. Someone who isn't afraid to fight for what they believe in, even if their methods are occasionally dramatic." Karen looked at him suspiciously. "What are you suggesting?" "Co-presidency. Equal partners. You keep the community standards high. I work on making the rules more flexible. We balance each other out instead of tearing each other down." Karen was quiet for a long moment, considering. It wasn't the total control she'd craved, but it was something else, something that might be better. Partnership instead of power. Collaboration instead of conquest.